Now that you have your floor plan finalized, your scale, and your circuit diagram, the final part of the building proposal is determining the valuation. This is just a fancy way of saying what is your energy cost. If you were to actually build this facility, how much is it going to cost you to run the electricity in it for a year? So what you are going to need to do for your particular house is to figure out the calculations per room. How much is it going to cost per year for each room in your house to run the electricity? And then add up all those totals, add up all the rooms in order to figure out the total energy cost for your house for 1 year. So in order to do this, you first need to figure out what kind of lights are you going to use in your house. And this is going to depend on the purpose of the lights, what the room's purpose is as well. So there's 3 common light types. The first I've abbreviated here is ILBs. These are called incandescent light bulbs. These are what we are mostly familiar with. These are actually being phased out by the government and are no longer being produced. You'll still find them in stores until stores run out of them completely and sell them off. And that's because they're really energy inefficient for energy, and cause harmful things to the environment. They cost more, there's more greenhouse gases as a result of producing more electricity to run them, etc., etc. So you might be familiar with like a 40-watt bulb or a 60-watt bulb or a 100-watt bulb. Those are all references to incandescent light bulbs. We're not going to choose those because they're being phased out. We can't build our house with those. We need to choose between either CFLs or LEDs. CFLs are compact fluorescent light bulbs, as you might see down here. This might look a little bit more familiar to you nowadays. A 40-watt bulb in an incandescent is about 12 watts in a CFL, 18 corresponds to 60, and 26 corresponds to 100. And for LEDs, which are light-emitting diodes, okay, which are also becoming more common because they're more energy efficient and cost less, the equivalent wattage would be 5 watts, 8 watts, and 16 watts. What you need to decide is, if I'm building a room, what kind of lights do I want in that room? So for example, if I am building a kitchen, I really want bright lights in the kitchen so that I can see what I'm doing, the food I'm chopping up, and so I don't hurt myself. So you're probably going to want to use a 100-watt incandescent bulb, which would be a 26-watt or a 16-watt of the other two, depending on what you choose. You can look up the differences between these two more if you would like to figure out why you might choose one or the other. But what we really need to know how to do is, once we've chosen the bulb we're using, how to calculate the cost of that bulb. So, in order to calculate your cost, we need to figure out how many kilowatt hours, kWhr, this stands for kilowatt hours, will our light bulbs use in a given year. So what we're going to need to figure out first is the number of watts the bulb uses. So you'll choose that from based on the bulb that you choose back in this table. Then you're going to need to convert that to the number of kilowatt hours. Okay. Well, we'll first convert it to kilowatts. Then we're going to need to convert that to kilowatt hours by thinking about how many hours per day this is going to be used, and then eventually how many hours per year it's going to be used. And then we need to multiply that by the cost of the bulb. And this is going to give us our total cost for that bulb in a given year. So according to the most recent statistic that I could find from the BLS.gov website, the average utility cost in Seattle right now is about 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. Washington tends to have relatively inexpensive electricity for a bunch of different reasons. But we're going to use this value to calculate our costs for our light bulbs in our houses. So I'm going to walk through how to do one of these calculations, and then you're going to need to do those same calculations for your own house and submit those as part of your building proposal. So again, just one thing to make a note of, the cost we said was 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay, so let's say this is one of the rooms in my house that I'm designing. And again, you're going to need to do this for each room in your house. This is a living room, and I have 4 lights in this living room. Since it's a living room, I want the lights to be, you know, not super bright, but like a comfortable brightness. So I'm going to choose a low wattage 12 watt CFL bulb, a compact fluorescent. Okay. Again, you're going to make the choice for what you want to use, but I'm going to use 12 watt compact fluorescent light bulbs because I want them to be on the less bright side. So the way I'm going to do these calculations is I first need to think about, okay, if I have a 12 watt bulb, I need to convert that into kilowatts. So to convert 12 watts into kilowatts, okay, I'm going to do something called dimensional analysis. I know that in every 1,000 watts, there is 1 kilowatt. Okay? So when these units cancel, I'm going to get 12 times 1 up top divided by 1,000. You could also just think of this to convert to kilowatts. You just take the number of watts and divide it by 1,000. So that's 0.012 kilowatts. So this bulb is going to use 0.012 kilowatts. Now I need to think about how much time is this bulb going to be used during a day. So if I have 0.012 kilowatts, okay, let's think about a given day. So in a given day, let's say I'm at work and then I'm sleeping, so I'm gone for a large part of the day and I'm not using the light bulbs. I'm going to say about 10 hours per day that this light bulb gets used. You need to make the approximation for your house and the lights that you are using. How many hours a day are those lights going to be used? I'm assuming it's going to be about 10. So when I multiply those numbers together, I get 0.12 kilowatt hours. Okay? That is for 1 day's use of electricity. But I need to run this cost for the whole year. So I need to multiply this by how many days there are in a year. 365. And when I do that calculation, okay, I get a value of 43.8 kilowatt hours per year. Now, this is for one light bulb, but according to my circuit diagram in my floor plan, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 light bulbs. So I need to take this number, 43.8, and multiply it times 4, because that's how many bulbs I have in this particular room. And when I do that multiplication, I get 175.2 kilowatt hours for this entire room up here. This is how much electricity, how much power these bulbs are using. Now I got to figure out the cost. We know that the cost in Seattle is about 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So if I take this value and I multiply it by 10.5 cents, I'm not going to multiply it by 10.5 because I want this to be in dollars. So I'm going to multiply it by times 0.105. And that is going to give me a final answer, okay, just draw a little bit more space here, of about 18.40. This is equivalent to $18.40 to run the lights in this room in 1 year. So, to you that might seem like a lot, it might not seem like very much at all, but again, there were a lot of assumptions that went into this. We assumed we were using a 12 watt bulb. You might use higher wattage bulbs depending on the room. We use 12 hours per day. Let's say you're running a gymnasium that's used all hours of the day. This number might be a lot higher. We assumed it's going to be used 365 days a year. Everyone needs to make that assumption. And as a result, that gives us a final value of $18.40. I would then need to take this number and do the same calculation for every room in my house. You need to show this work for every room in your house to get the total valuation, the total cost of your electric bill for your house, and scan that as part of your building proposal and the final product number 2. So what you should do from here is you should go make those calculations. Get a blank piece of paper out, walk through these calculations for your room in your particular house, and then you will be done with the valuation.